All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the third episode of the John Gill podcast show. Super excited, super excited to have Mike Skoulsky with Stas Development here in the studio today. Mike, we are friends and actually partners, I think, on a deal here as well. So, want to thank you for coming into the studio. And if you can go ahead and just tell us a little bit about your company to start off.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I
Sure.
really appreciate it. I saw some photos online of this whole setup and it's a lot more impressive than I imagined.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, so I started Stas Development now about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I previously had a different company with a partner, but at that point it was time to do my own thing. So I named Stas Development after my late father,
Hmm.
Stas Skolsky. And I've been building ever since,
There it is. Awesome, awesome. So why don't you give us a little introduction about how you came into real estate? Let the audience know, Mike, where he grew up, a little bit about your personal life, if you could.
Yeah, definitely. So originally born in Ukraine, immigrated to America with my parents in 92. Actually, my dad came before us in 91. It was tough getting out of Ukraine, if you could imagine.
Oh, that was during,
It
yeah,
was just after the collapse of
the Soviet.
the Soviet Union.
Wow,
So we actually came through Canada, spent like 6 months there before
no
we got
kidding.
an actual visa to come to America. Um, my dad was an architectural engineer in Ukraine, but his communist job was painting communist propaganda murals. So when he came here, he started out slow as a carpet layer helper, made enough money to buy a van. From there, started his carpet business. And then he eventually got into what he wanted to do from the start, which was flipping houses and construction. And little by little, he started building here in Chicago. And, as a kid, I was always his helper,
That's awesome.
and feel like I grew up in the business. And
So he was your mentor. He taught
yeah,
you, yeah.
funny enough, I think he didn't actually want me to get into real estate. My parents both pushed me to be a doctor, but
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's
yeah,
something that most parents are always pushing their kids to be.
but here I am.
And it actually, thank God, has worked out great. I mean, when I'm driving through the city, I see a lot of your projects, a lot of the development right here and around Wicker Park. You've done some beautiful buildings right here on Ashland, and Chicago is one that you did. You've done a lot of adaptive reuse projects. Can you let the audience know exactly what adaptive reuse is? You've done some great things with churches.
So adaptive reuse, I'd say, is taking a building and reconfiguring it to make it repurposing the structure into something else. So taking a church and making it into condos, taking a school,
Mhm.
turning it to apartments, um, just saving the shell, keeping the guts, and reusing it. And while I feel like adaptive reuse is much more challenging than new construction, it's impossible to recreate those structures that were built 100
Absolutely.
plus years ago. The Everything was over engineered. It's European construction that can last 1,000 years. So why not?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've seen a lot of your projects, and I think what are the neighborhoods that you're focusing on today?
So I've been focusing on Noble Square. It's just a part of West Town here. So Wicker Park, Bucktown, Ukrainian Village, Noble Square. Um, it's just the pocket that I fell into, and I've done, you know, construction in Roscoe Village, Ukrainian Village, Wicker Park, Evanston, Bucktown, Logan Square.
And that's consisted of, say, how many condos per development?
So per building, typically 3 to 10 condos per building.
Hmm.
Um, I've the street that I live on right now, I've built quite a bit on, as you know.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's amazing. It's almost out of a TV show. You walk down that street, you own or you've done probably half the new construction on that block, and almost like everyone on that street's also in the real estate business. It seems too. So it's kind of it's a funny thing, but it's awesome. And what you've done for that block is just amazing.
It it just amazes me that you could do so much construction in the city and never
Yeah.
really see the impact, but when you focus it on one small block, you could really see how, your work changes the face of that street and then eventually the city.
I always say you're an artist, not just what you do to your with the projects that you've worked on, but I see that you're also going into actual art as well. So,
Yeah,
with what you told me about your dad and painting the murals, now I can see also some of that is in the blood.
maybe, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, he was a pretty talented artist, but
but so are you. I've seen a lot of your
yeah,
work, and it looks amazing.
thank you. I've always felt like an artist, but never painted.
Hmm.
I always thought that my construction was my art, and I would put the maximum creativity into that.
Hmm.
Um, but I think with construction come a lot of frustrations, and you need some outlets for those. And I turned to art, and I started painting about 2 years ago, and got more and more involved, and it's coming together pretty nice at this point.
Yeah, I've been asking you when is that next? When are you doing the first exhibition? When are we going?
Just looking for a space right now.
All right. Well, I don't think that's going to be difficult because you're a developer, and if there's one thing you're good at is finding locations. One thing I wanted to talk to you about was let's get into the actual development. What does it take when you're starting off? How do you identify certain areas that could be a potential win? Um, what are you first looking at as far as identifying a site that could work for your project?
I feel like that's a very complicated
Sure.
question with a lot of different answers from different people. I personally have been in this for a while, so I turn to my gut and my gut feelings about a property, and that's my starter, right? Obviously, you need to get a lead on the property, get a phone call.
So
Um,
let's talk about that. Are those typically you're going out there and knocking on doors, relationships that you've built with brokers?
so it's very long-term relationships that I've built and had.
Hmm.
Some inherited from my dad. A lot of the properties that I got, for instance, on my street were from neighbors that knew I was the builder. You know, one of them, I knocked on the door being like, "Hey, I'm building next door. Please reach out if you have any issues." Just a friendly
Here I am.
pre-construction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live across the street.
Right.
Let me know if we screw anything up.
Sure.
Um, and by the way, I'll buy your property if you want to sell it. Um, Month later, she calls me,
And it was
and
done.
yeah, it's done deal.
That's
That goes for like five more properties on that block.
that's
So
amazing. What do those transact at approximately, and what sort of at what price range?
those were all roughly between 4 and 500, up to six.
Okay, so yeah, we're definitely dealing in the luxury condo market.
Oh, you mean the condos? That was for the land.
Oh, for the land. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay. And then
yeah. So
per
for the
yeah,
condos, they would start at 550, I would say, and all the way up to 950.
amazing. So let's go back. So you've now identified properties based off relationships, knocking on doors, and and then that gut feeling if this is going to be a good deal or not. And then what's the next step there?
I mean, everyone needs to have a spreadsheet for the bank, right? You need a
Right, right.
construction loan. I feel like the spreadsheets are there to back up a gut feeling.
Sure.
In my experience, when I've relied mostly on the spreadsheet that says this is going to be a good project, it hasn't usually turned out to be that great.
Really?
Yeah, it's I don't know what it is. I feel like other people probably have different experiences, but if I'm not 100% comfortable in the development, it
Yeah, I completely understand. So after the budgeting aspect, what sort of mishaps have you seen when it comes to budgeting exactly? So, you run all your numbers, and where have you seen the biggest problems lay or lie on the spreadsheet versus reality?
so it's construction, right?
Yes.
You're behind schedule and over budget most of the time, I'd say.
Hmm.
Um, I would say being overly optimistic definitely can shoot you in the foot. I have got a pretty great story with a deal that I picked up. God, this was 6 years ago now, I'd say. It was one of my first deals with my previous partner in our company back then. It was an unfinished new construction three flat.
Okay.
Okay. One developer started, lost it in a foreclosure. Another developer picked it up, lost it in the foreclosure. And then after the recession was when I came in looking to finish it. So I walked through the building. There's drywall, there's kitchens, countertops, faucets, couple pipes here and there that were cut,
Hmm.
stolen pipes. So I'm looking at this and I'm like,
Surprising. Stolen copper.
oh, Chicago.
Chicago.
So I'm looking at this and it's easy, right? What do? We just like repaint it, finish the floors, touch this up, fix that up, and we're good to go, ready to sell. So we do, we didn't hire an inspector, which I think we should have pre-purchased. I did the inspection myself because I'm a big expert in this stuff.
Sure, the developer. Why
Yeah,
not? Yeah.
yeah, I can handle this.
Yeah.
We purchased the property, and then there's a little bit of water in the basement. So I'm like, I throw in a sump pump into the pit. I'm like, oh, there's no pump. I throw one in. Everything's attached. And I look out the window and I see water gushing out of the downspout.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then I start looking for the sewer cleanout and I'm like, shit, there's no sewer
Oh shit.
and there's no water.
Oh my God.
And that just, it's shocking because that's step 2 in construction. You put your foundation, then you put your water and sewer, and then you finish the building. How do you skip that step? So then I'm like, what else is wrong here? Start messing around with the electricity, realize there's no wires in the walls, there's no electrical service,
Jeez.
just left and right. It was like nonstop
Just a
issues.
can of worms.
And,
Yeah.
just on like the handful of things that the guy skipped over, it was like over 100 grand.
That can make or break you on a project. That's insane.
So it was a broken project, but
Right.
somehow I got lucky with it because, and this was kind of funny too. Chicago Fire approached me and they're like, hey, we want to rent it to shoot like a scene and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, the TV show.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 days later, I'm on the plane to go to the builder show. Before leaving, my project manager's like, look, man, don't worry about it. I'm not even going to call you. Like, everything's cool. I'm on the flight. I land. I get a message that the building caught fire for real.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, God damn it. I left for literally I've been in the air for 2 hours.
Holy
in
shit.
this
You've
building.
got to be. Oh my God.
And, so it caught fire from the plumber trying to fix the pipes and torching him, caught the insulation between the floors. He burned a good chunk of the second and third floor, but then the fire department comes and they,
The real fire department. The real
yeah,
fire,
the
right?
real fire.
Yeah.
And then they douse your building to a gut rehab point, and thank God for insurance. That really saved the project. It
Wow.
allowed me to gut rehab the thing and redo it
And
the
start
way it
over.
yeah. And then it was done the right way. I did the right installations, like, everything was redone
Yeah.
to, opening those walls, was, you know,
Then
kinda
yeah, that was insane. And how did that project so I mean, you're talking about that's a nightmare from, day 1 to, you're going out on vacation or on the airplane and then that happens. How did that building pan out?
great. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a big win,
Okay.
um, mostly due to the fire.
Oh, the
I would say that's
it
what
saved the
saved it.
deal.
Yeah, I got
Wow.
to actually do it the right way, got rehab it, and insurance really helped cover the costs of that, so it turned out to be the deal I expected in the first place,
Unbelievable.
minus the, you know, additional year of construction and
Sure,
whatever else,
sure.
but
But the profit was there and
yeah, those,
it worked out. That is amazing. I mean, you really see it all in this business. I mean, there's nothing short of disasters that we run into.
I guess
Um,
my big advice from that one is if something is partially finished, never assume that it's done the right way. That's how you're gonna really get stuck.
yeah.
I've done that twice now. Both times it did not work out. Once was once was even what I thought was very minor. It was once again an unfinished three flat. It was a gut rehab, masonry building, and the previous owner or builder had done the underground sewer,
Hmm.
and I cameraed the system, but after finishing it, just something wasn't right. You know, basement kept on backing up. I had to do a retention, you know, I don't even know what,
Wall.
not wall, but one of those retention tanks
Okay.
that you excess water can kind of flow over and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and then pump out of there. Um, so never trust what someone else did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's insane. Okay. So what are the steps then? Now, and those are some great stories. I mean, that's insane. And that's what I like to hear. I think that's what our audience likes to hear. The real uh, disaster and war stories, everyone paints a pretty picture about, they see the end product that looks amazing, but half of them don't realize the struggles that it takes to kind of get to that end result. So that's awesome. So when you look at a deal and after you've underwritten it, you've done the budgeting and you've gone in, w- what are the steps that a new developer can take in saying, okay, I've got the land, we've acquired it. What do they do first? I know that the architect is involved, obviously. Do you want to just explain to someone who's looking to get into development and just share with them some of the steps that they'll need to follow? I think you said something earlier which was great, which was the foundation. Then, can you explain to them kind of the order of events on what it takes to actually get a building up?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been going back and forth with inside my head on this, and it's do you want to be a developer or do you want to be a general contractor or builder? You know, think those are two different things. I've primarily general contracted my own developments,
Hmm.
and I see a lot of people that really frown upon that because then you're taking the bulk of the liability, right? If you're misbudgeting, then it's your own fault.
Sure.
You don't have anyone to turn to if they're misbudgeting.
Hmm.
Um, you can't
Can't blame the contractor for going over budget.
if you're the
Yeah,
contractor.
if you're the contractor, right? So it's almost an insurance policy there. Yeah.
And to limit your own liabilities and everything and headaches, I think having
Yeah.
a separate general contractor is especially for someone getting into real estate development. I'd say real estate development is something that if you have the means that you can definitely do. Construction, on the other hand, is like just
A mess.
it's a mess. It's a nasty process.
Sure.
It freaks people out. There's
Meaning doing the work yourself, getting in on the project.
That's a good way to take a good real estate development and screw it up
Sure.
by, not having that experience in construction. And if you do want to do your own general contracting, you start small. You learn on a small project, you
Yeah.
see how big of a pain in the ass that is. And then if you're still okay with it, you go forward and
Sure.
keep doing more and more.
And what are you seeing also as far as pricing goes today? You're hearing different developers talking about $1.50 a square foot to build. What sort of pricing are you seeing it's kind of shaking out at?
I mean, I keep mine roughly around there,
Hmm.
but it really depends. Just because you're doing an existing building, like I'd say 9 out of 10 times, if it's a gut rehab, you might be at the same price or more. You're gonna, your timing is what's gonna kill you on those because doing new construction, you put up a shell, everything fits together. You don't have guys tinkering with, you know,
Hmm.
curved walls and trying to make up for a slanted floor,
Sure.
level this and that. It's everything goes a lot smoother in that process. So, I think that's a big deceiving point that people can run into is the structure's there, the foundation's there, but then, you know, there might be foundation repairs. There's definitely tuck pointing. There's definitely, stuff that just takes more time than
Than just building ground up.
right.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, with that said, uh, you contract it out, and what is the timeline that typically it takes? I mean, typically you're looking to go in and do a zoning change. I mean, you're looking for deals that already have the zoning in place. I
Don't get me
mean,
started on zoning changes.
well, those are realities because I think that's what can make or break deals too. You go in thinking you're going to do a zoning change. What's the process or what does it take to do the zoning change and the timeline, and then just getting the deal from acquisition to closing, the
Yeah,
timeline.
so zoning changes are just straight brain damage. It's I think the reason I was able to be fairly successful in Noble Square was because I took on every property had a zoning change. I lived on the block, the neighbors knew me, the alderman knew me very well. We had a great relationship. Um, and the zoning changes, my first one took about 7 months,
Wow.
which,
Is
you
that
know,
normal? Is that a standard time frame for a zoning
I
change? Because we had someone mention last time it took them almost about a year and a half to get a zoning change approved. So what's the standard or the average, or is there no average?
there is no average.
Okay.
There's no standard. It's a big wild card. I'd say in Noble Square, I'm involved in the community groups. They see me, they know me, and more importantly, my first zoning change, I had a lot of pushback, just concerns from the groups on what are you going to build? Is it going to be like you're presenting in the photo
Mm.
in the rendering here? I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't it be?
Right.
What do you mean? Um, I had a design with some Ipe wood on it, and one of the members is like, "How do we know this wood isn't gonna rot in a year?" I'm like, it's Ipe.
Yeah.
It's not gonna.
And
Res-
that's when you have to go in and
Her
explain a little
yeah,
bit. I mean, okay.
her response was, "Well, the other developer said Ipe and it's rotten now." I'm like, "Well, because he didn't use Ipe."
ePay. Wow.
Um, but so after my first zoning change, the group actually took a field trip to the property that I built.
Wow.
And they saw it. And then for my next zoning change, I came back and they were like, "Okay, you did exactly what you said you were gonna do." I'm like, "Yeah, why wouldn't I?" Um, and the second, third, fourth zoning change took me 4 months total in and out. So
Okay. So
almost half the time.
wow.
But now there's a new alderman.
Mm.
And And I've had two properties. I'm selling two properties with a zoning contingency, and I'm buying a property with a zoning contingency. And it's been 6 months. The alderman hasn't touched a single thing. You know, hopefully he doesn't hear this podcast, but it's been a nightmare.
Well, I mean, it's he may. It's this podcast going all around the world. No, we'll be fine. Yeah. So really, politics has a lot to do with it, obviously, and the community, which is something that again, it's a recurring kind of theme that you have to get both on board, obviously, to get these changes in place. Now, what about recently? I heard that Lori Lightfoot, the mayor, uh, has started to take away some of the aldermanic privileges on those changes, on those zoning changes. Have you heard anything to
Oh,
that
it's
effect?
been a big topic of discussion between me and my buyer that's undergoing this zoning change. I feel like there's been a lot of talk about it. Nothing's happened yet.
Mm.
It's anything having to do with city approvals. Just
It's a painful process.
it's painful. Even if you double your time frames that you think, you're probably underestimating. It's just insane.
Yeah, it's the reality of dealing in this industry and in this business. I mean, it seems like it's always an uphill challenge, and we know that the city's doing their best, obviously, but there are challenges, and it seems like everyone's just trying to give you a hard time more than they are trying to help. I mean, I just came from an
Yeah.
inspection the other day. Uh, the building inspector, I go to shake his hand and say thank you, and he looks at it and just continues to walk past me. And I said, okay, you don't have to be I mean, you don't have to be rude. I mean, we're all in this business. I mean, there's nothing to be angry about. But anyway, so it's an uphill challenge for sure.
With my bigger project in St. Boniface, I dealt a lot with the city, and I really got the sense that these guys looked at me like I'm a philanthropist billionaire with just like unlimited money.
Which, by the way, that project is beautiful. Saint Boniface Church. It's right. Who For anyone who doesn't know, go ahead and Google it. We're gonna try to go ahead and put a picture of the church here. That is on Chicago and Ashland. It's a beautiful.
Chestnut and Noble.
It's on Chestnut and Noble. There it is.
Yeah.
So go ahead and Google it. And Mike, tell us a little bit about that. You've had some movie production there as well,
Yeah,
right?
I've had a couple movie rentals so far. I don't want to jinx it.
Sure.
In talks with an HBO show right now that might rent it, which would be awesome. Some much needed relief on a very, very strenuous, financially
Sure.
strenuous project. Um, so that project, here's how I got into that. I went to my local burrito place, like halfway down the block, and I came out with my burrito. And my friend Bob, who's involved with all the community groups, and he was running for state rep at that time. It's like, yo, Mike, you want that church? I'm like, yes, I do.
Absolutely.
I've been staring at it, walking my dog around the park, looking at it for 3 years, just wishing I could get it. I talked to one of the neighbors, and he's like, "Oh, it's a lost cause. It's done. Like,
They're gonna have to tear it down.
yeah, we tried to fight for it. It's over." But then I started like my friend Bob introduced me to Preservation Chicago, who I think now is like a 16-year-old organization here in Chicago that
Oh, okay.
preserves, like, makes landmarks. They got a bunch of stuff landmarked. In one sense, it's nice when they're on your side. It probably sucks when they're against you and you're trying to do some reasonable construction and you
Sure,
can't because, Um, so I got involved with them, then the city, and somehow I got myself dead in the center of this deal, took a lot of risks to get it. And then once I got it, the city was in huge support for me to get it and actually save the structure. Once I got it, their attitude shifted.
Mhm.
So now I own it. And now it's time to negotiate. and the negotiation process was quite a mess. Um, like, if I could, I'd give everyone everything they want, right?
Sure.
But I've got financial partners and obligations to those equity investors that, help me do crazy things, right? Um, so that process was definitely a challenge. We thought it would take about 6 months. It ended up dragging out to like a year and a half.
Mm.
And at that point, my financial partners were on the fence about going in. So then this whole property's still in limbo, trying to get it all unraveled and
It's going to be a
survive.
beautiful project if you
It
can get
will,
it
yeah.
finished. And it's not just the church; it's the land next door,
Yeah, so
correct?
it's gonna be a total of 41 units, 17 in the church and 24 next door. The church units average 2,200 square feet.
Wow.
And then the penthouse units in the church are gonna be out of control.
And there's an
It's
unobstructed view on the north view, right? Or in the south view.
Yeah, the
The
south
south view.
facing
Yeah.
wall is unobstructed views of the city. I mean, one of the penthouse units has a 10-story bell tower in it. Like, I imagine doing a master bedroom tower, which is the least practical thing that you could ever do. And, if you wake up and try to go to work, forgot your keys upstairs, it would really suck. But imagine coming up to your bedroom, you're walking up this bell tower. First you pass closet, then second level is your bathroom with like a 10-foot by 10-foot circle window with like unobstructed views of downtown.
Amazing.
Then you get upstairs and you have floor to ceiling like windows. The openings right now are 16 feet tall.
Wow.
You get upstairs, you kind of come out of this like almost like a hatch, but it's open, right?
Hmm.
And then you have your bedroom. So when you wake up, you're in this glass box with a 360 view of the city.
That is unbelievable.
It would just be right, like
It's
not.
magic. That is unbelievable. That's amazing.
And then
Wow.
below in your living room, you have a 35-foot lofted ceiling.
Oh my gosh.
It's
That project has to go through. I mean,
Yeah,
that's going to be that it's going to be great for the city. It's going to be great for those preserving the church. And you know, wishing you the very best on that project.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a handful. That's
Yeah,
that's
and
why I got into art. That stressed me out to the point where I started painting.
yeah, no, I can see that you need a medium to release some of that stress. It's definitely a stressful business, but also a very lucrative business to be in, and also, I think that developers in general should take a lot more credit for helping the city um, progress and look much better. You guys have helped out.
I don't think it's an issue of taking credit. It's more of an issue of getting credit.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Right. True, true. And then so it's 41 units, and then how many on the land you're gonna do? How many town or it's a townhome development? There's
It's a
condos,
condo,
right?
24-unit condo
Okay.
building. So the church averaged 2,200 square feet per unit with parking in the basement, the existing basement.
I remember you showed me. We went. I think.
Did I take you in that
Yeah,
basement?
yeah, you did. It was
Yeah, it's like
insane.
it's
It was
really
insane.
creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super creepy. I mean, I'm telling you, when we're going down. First off, the church. I wish I'm going to put pictures up, but when you walk in, let me paint a picture. If anyone has ever seen in the early '90s, like Romeo and Juliet, the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, it kind of has that vibe.
I haven't seen it.
No, oh, okay. Well, you've got to see it. I think I told you the last time we were there. You've got to see it because I'm telling you, the second you watch it, it totally gives off that vibe. I mean, you've got like, it's an abandoned church, huge. I mean, you heard the description that Mike just said.
Last service was in 1990, so if you could
Wow,
imagine,
that's how long it's
it's
been vacant.
nearly 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 30 years. I mean, you just get goosebumps, and then as you walk in at the very end, you see the altar, and there's graffiti all around. I mean, it's awesome. Totally abandoned. And then so yeah, Mike, I remember you took me down to the basement too to give me the tour, and it was insane down there. Give us some more vivid details about how that looks.
Well, it's
And
just,
your plans, because I know that
I
you want to
mean,
do some wine cellars there.
yeah, so the basement right now just looks and feels like health hazards, but you really see the bones of the structure, which one of the towers comes down to, the steel column comes down to a wedding cake footer
Mm-hmm.
that's sticking out of the foundation slab.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a 14-foot, roughly like, or 10 by 10 foot wedding cake footer that kind of sticks out of the ground and comes up. It's the most insane
Yeah, when I saw that, I was blown
monstrosity.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's, and I look at it and it's back then when it was built over 100 years ago, they didn't have a computer to give them some minimum requirements of what loads are and how much this will support. So everything was way over engineered. I'd say to the point where this could last 1,000 years, and you
sure.
look at this and it's been abandoned for 30 years. There's absolutely nothing that, you know, there's barely any damage. There's been winters. There's some roofing damage, but the structure itself
It's solid.
it's so solid.
Solid, yeah.
You've got columns that the supporting columns on the outside walls, 9 foot wide, solid brick, like 4 by 9 feet of just solid bricks.
And it's amazing to see some of the past projects you've done with the churches, and
So I've only done one other church.
well, with the church. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
with that last church that I saw. I think in Humboldt Park,
Yeah. It's a
and
good practice church. That's
yeah. So I saw that, and then you go from that to this huge monster. I mean, this huge, not monster. This huge church. It's like, I mean, it's day and
it's
night.
big.
Yeah, it's
It's
huge.
big, yeah. It's really big.
So what were you thinking about going into that? I mean, it's just you.
Like if someone's gonna give me the money for it, like
Let's do it.
let's do it. Like it's not anything more complicated than the other church.
Hmm.
It's just a little bit bigger, like 6 times bigger.
Right.
So
And so, well, once that project wraps up, what other plans does Mike Skoulsky have? What's his vision long term? I mean, what sort of other projects are you looking into? I know that you're really going into the art now heavy. Um, what do you have in mind as far as your future goals?
well, it would be great to be a full-time artist, but I'm not banking on that just yet.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, construction's my art, and recently I've started picking up some more interesting projects as just as a strict general contractor and not a developer. Um, I've been updating a historical mansion in Hyde Park right now,
Oh,
and that's been a really fun project because I get to get real creative at someone else's expense, and it's been awesome. I mean, I've taken something that was already really amazing and put out a lot of concepts. I've got an iPad Pro, so I take a photo and I sketch my concept over it. So I take what's existing and for the clients or whatever, I can sketch right over it, show them exactly well,
the
a
renderings.
cartoon version of what it could look like. And, if someone has a decent enough imagination, I should actually share some of those with you, like the concept
Yeah,
sketch to
yeah, we would love that.
reality. I think that'd be a cool visual.
Yes, yeah, send that over, and
Um,
we'll definitely put a link for all your. We're gonna actually put a link for your artwork and all of the other
I
projects that
should
you've
make a
done.
website for my artwork then, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, if anyone wants to find you, what's the name? Where can they find you?
Instagram is 847 Mike.
847 Mike. Perfect. And then your company.
Stas Development, so stasdev.com,
Perfect.
which Stas Development. My email is Stas Dev. Trying to explain that over the phone has been a nightmare. I thought it was such a simple, like, short extension of an email.
Sure.
STASDEV. The amount of, like, combinations of letters I've gotten back from people and trying to say it over the phone is
My
just
email Why does my email keep bouncing?
it's like,
Yeah, I hear you. So this project in Hyde Park, that sounds like a lot of
oh
fun, and
yeah.
yeah,
So I was telling my fiance, I'm like, oh, I really like this mansion updating stuff. Maybe I should do more. And then a week later, someone reached out to me, a lady that I know, and she owns a mansion in Bucktown. And she's like, hey, like, can you have lunch with me? And she started telling me about she has 2 units plus a coach house and just
amazing.
a beautiful landmark mansion. And actually, I call it Bucktown. It's actually Wicker Park. It's right by close to Sultan's Market, over there, just south
Uh,
of North
yeah.
Avenue,
Oh,
Pierce,
oh yeah. Okay.
where like all the fancy buildings are.
Sure, sure.
So she bought this building 50 years ago for nothing. Right now, it's like the most valuable thing ever. And she's, elderly. She wants to stay in it, leave a unit for herself. And she's like, I want other people to enjoy it. It sits on 3 or 4 city lots with like the most gorgeous garden. The building itself is 10,000 square feet,
Oh my God.
not including the coach house. So we're going to rehab that into 3 condos plus the coach house. So 4 total. She's going to keep one for herself, sell the other ones. That's a really exciting project. I feel like
That sounds amazing.
it's gonna be very complicated for sure. Only because we need to work around a lot of existing conditions, and I feel like when you try to save money by doing half a rehab, you always end up having to do a full rehab anyway.
Sure.
It's just with this project, there's a lot of amazing woodwork, historical items, fireplaces, stained glass windows, things that need to be kept,
Hmm.
not only for sale but just it's just beautiful. So
Oh, we're gonna be. We'd love to have you keeping us updated on that project, and definitely would love to see a timeline of the befores and afters, and
yeah,
everything in between. I think that's a lot of fun. Um, well, Mike, going forward, you've got those projects, you've got the artwork. Please let us know. Uh, you know, I've seen what you've done so far on all your different developments. I just can't wait till you finally get that art exhibition set up. Please, man, come
yeah,
on. I
I
think I
will.
think Ian is also intrigued, and I think we all want to see that as well.
When you start getting into something at first, you're unsure about it, right? And I feel like people's feedback and support really helps you be like, yeah, I am pretty good at this.
Yeah.
So when I first started my first company and so my dad had passed away. He helped me start my first company,
Hmm.
passed away like 6 months later. And
Wow.
he got one of his very wealthy friends to invest in my company, pitching it as, he went to this guy for years asking for investments and, they would have both made money, but the guy never
Hmm.
did. Maybe it was because they were friends or whatever else. They didn't want to ruin relationship. So my dad pitched it as, don't invest in me, invest in your son,
Mm,
and I'll help him build a business with my son.
mm,
And the guy at that point was living in Ukraine. Um, so he invested in us and he started us with like 100 grand. We did a very small flip. It's kept on growing, growing, growing it. But 6 months into that process, my dad passed away, and my friend's dad was just, oh no, everything's going downhill, and we ended up pulling out of it and kept on going. But I remember just my uncertainty with those first projects and how scared I was because it's big money, you know.
I mean, you're a young guy, so I mean, what age were you when all
I
this was?
was 26.
26,
Wait, 24.
24, and you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars,
Yeah, bef-
millions actually.
it got to we grew from 100 grand to in construction to like 10 million, and I'd say like 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
But then it didn't work out with my partner. So yeah.
And what did you have any sort of how was that fallout? Um, I know it's never an easy thing to end a relationship there, but I mean, did you guys have anything in place that in the event the worst were to happen, that there'd be a peaceful kind of resolution on the or termination on the business?
No, I wouldn't say that we had anything in place, but we had been friends from a early age, and when you're good friends with someone, you get mad at each other, but you can't really stay mad.
Sure.
And that's kind of how it was. It's like, hey, we're friends, but we're not good partners.
Mm.
I not
Yeah, some people are just better as friends than they are
yeah, it's
partners, for sure.
and that's the other thing I would mention. It's, in this business, unless you have your own funds to and you're working with partners, you're working with investors, you got to be really careful about who you're working with because that's, you look at real estate and there's a lot of risks. Um, don't let your partners be one of the risks.
Oof. Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. Great advice. Be careful who you partner with, um, and also the importance of having doesn't matter the relationship, having everything written down. Your worst case scenarios, because unfortunately those are the realities of life. And as much as we want to carry on with and do business with our good friends, the realities of life is that uh, sometimes things come out of left field, and that's why you just have to plan for the worst. Also, not just on the development, but also with your partners and your financial, partners too, right?
Well, and I think going back to what you were saying initially and budgeting and everything, it's
Sure.
it's you're going for a construction loan. The bank is gonna try to make it work, right? They're not your best friend in this, or they're not your pass or fail. They're trying to get a loan out because at the end of the day, between the equity and what they're loaning to you, there's a you know there's enough in there for the bank always.
Sure.
There may not always be enough there for the developer.
Another great
Right.
point. Yeah.
Wow, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. No. 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 I'm
I
with you.
got I
I'm
got
with you.
kind of serious towards the end
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. No. 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 But absolutely, absolutely, because no, you're definitely hitting on some great points. But I like how that snowballed. I like how you described how you went from. I like how you went from doing a few deals, and then next thing you know, you're in the $10 million range, and it
And it
just
wasn't it wasn't a single project. It
Sure.
was it was a lot of we did a lot of really cool single families, and luckily we got out of that round before it went sour cuz it went down really quick here in Chicago.
And that was during the recession too, or did
No,
the
no, no.
recession have
This was
a
after.
Oh, after, okay.
So the first years after the recession, it's like when there's so much to buy, but no one's gonna invest in you, no one believes in you just yet. That was me after the recession, and God, the deals that I, watched slip by that I couldn't get funding for were out of control.
Mm,
Just I had in the West Loop in Chicago under contract. 14,000 square feet of raw, unfinished condo space on
Wow.
Randolph and Des Plaines on the 12th and 13th floor. The two penthouse floors of this building at 14,000 square feet. The developer went under before he finished the best two floors. I don't know why
Wow.
he wouldn't start with those, but
Right,
he
right.
might have survived that one if he did. But I had it under contract for I think 1.4 million bucks, $100 a foot. And I think you know what property trades at over
Well,
there
yeah.
right
Why
now.
do you let our audience know, please?
Roughly 1,000.
Okay. Jeez.
I could have finished it for another 100 at that time, and if I would have kept it, that would have been
That's it. Yeah.
yeah, that would have been great.
That would have been
But
amazing.
coulda, woulda, shoulda,
Well, that's how it
and
goes.
that was the only reason I didn't get that was due to an investor. Investor came and he's like, "This is only worth $1 million. That's all you're getting." I'm like, "Okay, well,
That's tough. Sometimes, you can't have everyone see your point, and
yeah,
then you look at the deal in hindsight and said, "Man, that would have been a home run." But how many times a deal that you might have looked at and you passed on was a flop, So that's just kind of life sometimes,
yeah,
it's you just take them
yeah."
as you
You
go.
definitely don't look back at the
Yeah,
deals
you
that
don't
were
look back.
flops,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you look at
because I
some.
looked at a lot that
Yeah,
probably flopped.
yeah, and you look at deals too that you're like, well, if I would have held on to it today, oh my God, I'd
Yeah,
be,
but you sold it for a
But you
reason,
sold it exactly, so you can't look back.
and like Fry Street's a great example of that. It's the first lot I bought on that block, I paid 250 grand. So it started at 250, then it was 350, and I, you know, I kind of was raising my own prices because I was building on the same block and people are like, "Oh, it's
Well, you just
developing."
sold
And
here for
yeah,
yeah.
so like I raised my own prices on the block, but I was still buying them cuz like I lived across the street. I've been on that block for 8 years now. I just recently moved into one of my developments, but still just across the street from where I used to live. Um Sorry, I forgot where I was even going with that, but you're oh, okay. So when I was buying it for 250 grand, I was selling the condos. I think the second floor started at like 450, maybe even lower, and then
Mhm.
the third floor,
You were
and
just
then
creating your own.
gradually, as I was paying more for the land, the condos were going up in price too. And I think it's important in real estate development that you set, a not a crazy margin. You're not looking to double your money because that's not going to happen. It's
Have
unless
realistic goals, absolutely.
yeah, realistic goals are very
And if you hit
important.
it out the park, then great, but at least you've got.
Yeah, and you could definitely double your money if you buy at the bottom of the recession. Some crazy deals come up. Yes. Today, no, definitely not.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a
Um,
challenge. We've been hearing it left and right. Everyone's looking out for that next recession. Hopefully, there'll be some opportunities then, but I think that's going to be a while from now.
I'm really curious if there's going to be as many opportunities as with the last
Right,
one.
right.
Because I
I
feel
don't think
like
it'll be like the
with the
last. Absolutely.
last one, I feel like everyone was hit just like blindsided,
Sure.
and with the next one, I feel like everyone's just itching to jump on something.
Right, and there's
You
money
know,
across. Yeah, there's tons of money out there. I mean, people aren't gonna miss out on the next opportunity.
I'm really curious on how that all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's gonna be it's like my partner told me. He says you're gonna have opportunities in every market, in every cycle. You could be in a recession, you can be where we're at today, and there's always gonna be buying opportunities. There's always gonna be situations out there where you can there's a distressed seller, or someone who's looking to retire and just doesn't want to deal in real estate where you can add value. They just get a little bit more difficult, but you'll always find ways to find a deal. It just gets a little bit more tough, and you got to get more creative. So, But I do want to end it here. I want to just thank you. We've kind of reached our mark. So Mike, I want to say thank you so much, man.
No, thank you.
You know, we always have a great time when we meet up, and can't thank you enough for being on the show today. Tons of just awesome value and stories that you've shared with us, and I, good luck to the future and to all your to everything else that you're working on today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and again, we're gonna put a link there to all of your artwork. So when you're also doing, you're selling your art for millions and millions of dollars. You heard him here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right.
It's that would be a dream, but definitely not counting on that just yet.
All right, awesome. Well,
thanks a lot. It's been great.
Thank you. It's been awesome. All right. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate it.